This is a tutorial for how to make sock hands. The first thing you need to do is measure how big your knuckles are. So measure across along your knuckles around here. Mine is just a little bit over 7 inches. So mine comes to about 7 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to just do 7 inches. The next thing that you need to do is check your gauge. Checking your gauge is casting on about 10 stitches and doing a stockinette stitch for about 4 rows. So that's about enough. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of stitches. The reason why you do this is because you want it to be long enough that it's about an accurate read on how many stitches are in one row or in one inch of work. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, there was 10. So it is about 4 stitches per inch. And you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So that means 4 inches per stitch. Now we do math. I want about 7 inches. So 7 times 4 is 28. So when I cast on for the actual thing, I want to make 28 stitches. This part is fun because you get to pull it all apart. So now, after you all do your math to figure out how many stitches that you're going to need, then you cast on that many stitches. So I've done mine stockinette stitch. So do that, knitting on one side, purling on the other side. And I decided that I wanted mine to be about to my wrist. So I measured that a little bit past my wrist. So I measured that out, and that was 7 inches. So here we are at about 7 inches. Maybe a little bit more, but that's fine. So what you need to do next, first, leave a long tail when you cast on, because you're going to need that for sewing. Now, I'll cast off loosely. I'm going to make sure that you're doing it loosely because otherwise it'll grab around your wrist and it'll be tight on your wrist. When you get to the end, and finish off, you also want to leave another long tail. I don't know, maybe about 1 foot. The way that you're going to sew it is called a mattress stitch. And you want to get a needle that's it's like a yarn needle. This is a pretty good yarn needle, or it can be plastic or it can be metal. What you're looking for is something that's fat and it's got a big eye. Let me see if I can get big eye, fat needle. Not pointy, not pokey stabby. So I think that I want the top of mine to be this edge, the cast off edge. It looks to me a little bit neater and not as rolly. This one rolls up a little bit. So what you want to do is you want to start at the side that you decide that you want to have near your hand. Thread the needle, which is relatively easy because it's got a big hole, or at least theoretically. Now the mattress stitch is super easy and complicated at the same time. What you want to do is you're going to take the first row that you did. See, that's the first row. It's kind of like a braid. And then that's the next one, or the first stitch, and then that's the next one. The first stitch that you did in the row is going to have 2 pieces. And that's going to be the same on both sides. So that's the first one. It's not going to look as neat as the other ones, but it's going to look good. And you'll be able to see that it's 2. What you're going to do, the first stitch, is you're going to find right here where there's another stitch underneath. So what you're doing is you're sewing each stitch, and you're looking for the stitch that's hidden underneath. So there's a stitch right here. Let me see if I can find it better. See, you can see it right in there. You stitch it right in there. And it's kind of magic. So let's do that again. Now, between these two is another stitch, and you're just going to put your needle in there. And you're going to do the same thing on this side. Right there is another stitch right there where you're going to put your needle and put it through. It's called the mattress stitch, so if this is kind of confusing, there might be more videos online. So here's the next one that we're going to go on. And then the next one is right there. Whoop. See that the eye of the needle is so big that the yarn's like, see you later. And this is going to be the part where your hand is. So you're not going to stitch as much. Let me do one more, and then I'll show you how fun and magic the mattress stitch is. So you can see it right now, but what you do is you kind of hold the 2 tops, 1 finger on each side, thumb in the middle, and then you pull this. And it doesn't even look like you have a stitch happening. The top isn't as fancy as it could be, but this is for showing purposes. Now, let me see. If I put this on my hand, is that where I want the thumb hole to be? I think I want to have it a little bit higher on my hand, so I'm going to stitch it a little bit more. So let me see if that's where I want it on my hand. I think so. That looks about right. So that's where we're going to stop on that side. And stopping looks kind of like you can go backwards up the ones that you just did if you want to. Let me see. I'm just having a hard time to see where it is. We did such a good job of stitching it, of pulling the stitches. Just going to stitch up a couple of stitches. On the inside. And then I'm going to go right into the back. And then sometimes what I do is I just kind of weave myself right in to the line that I just stitched. Other times I'll weave in and out of the actual stitch itself on the yarn, I'll do that the next time, and I'll show you how to do that. But this one I get to cut, So that part's done. Now, we're going to do the same thing on the bottom until we get up to where we know our thumb hole is for the right size. Same thing. That's why we left the long tail, so then we can do wonderful things. So the same thing, mattress stitch. That's the first stitch on the row. I'm going to go stitch right up here in between things. And then I'm going to go the same thing on this side. And then just go up until it's time, until I get enough that I want to be done. So I sewed it up, and I'm going to try it on and see if that's where I want to have the hole. It looks like I could probably do a couple more stitches. So I'll do that. Let me try it on one more time. And that seems to be the fit for me. So I wanted to show you one thing. When you're pulling this tight, so then it doesn't look like it's even stitched together, it just looks like part of it. Sometimes you might pull it too tight. And all you have to do is take this side and this side, but not hold on to the thread. So fingers on each side, fingers on either side, and straighten it back out, tug it back out again. Okay. And then it's good. So the way that I'm going to finish this one off is I'm going to stitch it back in to the hole right before it, if I can find it. Stitch it in another one. And then I'm going to weave it in. So what that means is that I'm going to follow the stitch itself. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to follow this stitch. So I'm going to go back behind here. And then you can see that the stitch goes up and around there. So I'm going to follow it that way, behind here. And then you can see it does the same thing. It comes down and around. So I'm just going to put my needle in right where that stitch is, behind it. And then it'll just look, see, that's going to do the same thing. And it's just going to look like it's in there and the stitches are happening. So when I'm done, instead of going through again, I'm just going to push it through this right here, because that's where the next part of the stitch goes, right there. And I'm going to turn it inside out, pull it out, and then I probably don't do it as right as everybody else, but I just kind of pick up some of the threads on the yarn and bring it back to here again. And then when I cut it, I'm going to try to leave just a little bit left so it doesn't pull out. Because when you pull it, things tend to pop out. And then you have a sock hand. Now make another one.